Hello, today is Tuesday, December 4th, 2018. This is the standard SIG cluster lifecycle call. I will start with a PSA that Robert Bailey wanted to mention to folks. As a reminder that there is a Zoom security vulnerability. If you haven't seen it, there's a link in the meeting notes. Please update your Zoom client. Most folks should have seen an update. You can do that by basically saying Zoom and check for updates. And the link inside the doc has details on the exact versions you should be looking for. The reason you want to do this update is because you don't want to have your meetings pwned from hackers that can spread bad things. That's one update. The second update I wanted to do is I was hoping other folks from other sub-projects would be here today to discuss updates I would like to give during the community update during the Contributor Summit. I will share my screen here. So currently, there are separate subsections that I have in the doc. And we'll take a look at the participants here. Is there anyone from Minikube on the call?
Yes, but I've lost most of my voice. This is Thomas Stromberg.
Okay. Are there any notable items, Thomas, that you would like us to call out as part of what happened in 2018 with Minikube?
I'm gonna have to think about that. I've only joined Minikube for the last 2 months, so I have to dig back and see what we've done before that.
Okay.
Let me get back to you on that one.
Okay. If not, what I will probably do is I will leave this open and just you should be able to comment on it. So, and if the comments go in, if not by a certain timeout, which will probably be later on this week, what I'll do is I'll just rock through release notes to try and get an update.
Okay. Thank you.
Are KubeSpray folks on the call?
Yes, Chad is here.
Okay, Chad, are there notable items that you wanted to call out for KubeSpray for things that happened in 2018?
Yes, I put a link in the meeting notes to a slide deck that I was just working on before the meeting.
I don't see it.
Scroll down or sub-bullet.
Oh, okay.
Might be more than you're looking for, but it's in the same vein as the other items that were already in that presentation.
It's taking a while to load. Oh, this is great. I will definitely add details here. I might this goes into the 2019 section too. So gotcha. what I'm looking for in the doc is there's a past, present, and future of SIG cluster lifecycle, and what I'm trying to do is give a brief update of what happened in 2018, and then down below, I'm also trying to talk about what's coming in 2019 for sub projects if they have details that they want to share. So it looks like you did both. That's awesome.
Cool.
I will incorporate the details there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Is Justin Santa Barbara on the call?
I am here. I have not yet done what you have asked me to do, but I will get to it.
Okay. Yeah, there is a COPS update here too as well. I don't know if there's notable callouts that you want to mention with regards to bundles. I do have a couple of slides in here referencing that too as well. So, you know, obviously the interesting things, what happened in 2018 with COPS, as well as, you know, potential roadmap items for 2019. If there are details you want me to share about bundles, there's a separate slide where I also give a shout out for your talk.
Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. I think that makes a ton of sense. I'm hoping we have more to share shortly. It's not that we're holding it for KubeCon, but we may hopefully have more to share by KubeCon. And but bundles is definitely out there.
Yeah, I also have a separate slide on etcd management, just basically quips from the call or from the CAP, just to give people, spread the awareness on the sub project that's going to be joining SIG cluster lifecycle.
That is great. Do you know how I can create the repo, by the way?
You need to go to the Kubernetes org. So if you go here, sorry, I just have fast links and then I edit. If you go to the Kubernetes org, you need to basically
issue and create. Okay.
Yeah, if you create a new issue, they'll have like, details on repository creation.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and just link to the mailing list stuff, and you already had a vote and yada yada. All right, so I think those are all the sub-project information I wanted to get in there. Everyone should have access to make comments if you want to add more details. I'm trying to give a time for every major sub-project that's part of SIG cluster lifecycle. So there's kubeadm, cluster API, kops, kubespray, minikube, and then again, conversely down below, what's coming in 2019. Talk about bundles, etcd management, roadmap for kubeadm, how angry I am about test apparatus, and soapboxing about what we need to do to fix it. Cluster API roadmap, and then I was going to add other slides here for kops and minikube, kubespray as well. Is there anything else that folks would like to see during the Contributor Summit?
I could probably edit some items about kubeadm DND cluster because it also did see some improvements. Maybe not that much, but if you are interested, it's also possible to edit some stuff here.
Go for it.
Okay, and okay, I see the document here. Okay.
One thing I wanted to do too is talk with you, Ivan. Maybe are you going to be at KubeCon this year?
Yeah, I'll be at KubeCon.
I don't know if you've been talking with Ben, if he's even on the call, with his work that he's been doing on kind, but I think the deduping of some of the apparatus for sort of cluster stand-up for CI integration tools, or just basically one-stop developer tools, would be super duper helpful to kind of like unite the clans there.
Yeah, I think it would be useful to discuss this indeed, because indeed we should avoid doing duplicate work.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, the kind code base is for sure much cleaner than KDC, but KDC has more feature coverage, and maybe we can work together to somehow combine the effort. We can discuss this at KubeCon indeed.
That sounds awesome. I would love that effort. And we were going to throw down as in like my squad, which will soon be VMware, throw down efforts to try and make sure that there's parity, like the multi-node support, the multi-cluster support, some of the other details and the to-dos that he actually has listed inside of the code.
Yeah.
Are there other updates that folks would like me to call out during the Contributor Summit that folks think are worthy of noting?
I'll probably make a pass. I haven't had time yet, but make a pass through this before. And I mean, I'm going to be there, so.
Yeah, well, I'm going to sit down with you too, you and Robert, probably later on this week, and go through the other slides in more detail. This is more the broader update for the SIG, but I need to talk about, there's 3 separate talks at KubeCon that are SIG focused.
Yeah.
And one is the intro, which I'm going to copy a lot of slides from China. One is the deep dive, which I'm also going to copy a lot of slides from China. I already have. And then there's the cluster API one, which I'm sure there's enough detail and information that folks can go on. But I need to talk with Robert this week and sit down together with everyone to try and get those slides cribbed here, cribbed in the other talks. My intent for this talk is basically to give a global style update during the Contributor Summit.
Yeah. So I can. So what we did in China was earlier. I said I didn't know if I could come or not. So if someone else can take on like presenting, fine. But now I'm going to be there. So if you want me to spread the load in some way, I'm happy to like join, because
I will add
organizers are flexible with that.
I will talk I will add you to the talk details, even though it won't be quote unquote formal. You're probably already on the, if you're going anyways and you're already registered. then it
Yes,
doesn't matter.
yes, yeah. I'm jumping on the plane in a couple of days.
All right. So we should sync this week. I've been poking Robert a couple of times. I know he's been busy and he's been on PTO, but I've been poking him a couple of times to try and sync this week on the details for the other talks.
Yeah.
Tim, I'm also going to be in Seattle. If needed, I also can help with something.
Sure, sounds good. I've already got the other talks open. I just need to fill out the details of the other sub-projects here, which I'm hoping other folks would want to highlight their useful information. That's pretty much all I have with regards to global updates. Are there other things that folks wanted to discuss as potential roadmap items for, or discuss in general about KubeCon? I know that we have a couple of birds of a feather sessions, which I think would be highly useful to get everyone together in a room to talk about several topics probably. I don't know if it makes sense to sort of pre-vet the conversation now to try and get, because there's a lot of things to discuss. What do folks think there?
I mean, I can think of a lot that I want to clear out, but I don't know. I guess it would make sense to try to take a stab at the roadmap doc. I mean, right now it's just a copy of the earlier 2018, but if we want to start in some way, we could start there.
I think a global, not just KubeADM, but a global.
No, it's global. It's global.
A global, like higher level roadmap of integration and features that we want to call out. Like I think etcd ADM and bundle management across every tool would be a highly, highly useful leveraged piece of the puzzle.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Right. I think what we're starting to do, which is the right approach, is to have these sort of layered toolbox of tools and then use them across all of the other components so that we don't have this duplication of effort over time.
I think KubeADM sort of pioneered that, and like I think that has worked well, right, in terms of being like that slice, the node configuration, or machine configuration, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think add-ons is a whole nother slice, and I think that etcd management is an underslice. But I think that approach is highly, highly useful. I think it's much more. It allows folks to explore the options and to come together in a highly functional way.
Yes, and I expect us to create a KEP with regards to add-on management in 2019.
One thing I definitely want to call out in the talk is the release testing tooling.
Yes.
It has been a tech debt that we have not paid down. We've just kind of limped it along for several releases. And I think as a SIG, we need to, because we are highly dependent upon the release, we need to start to have more say and to actually start to address some of these core fundamental problems that exist within the release and test apparatus.
Yes.
Is it going to include packaging as well?
Yes, absolutely. I opened up a tracking umbrella issue with regards to packaging yesterday, and looped in both the SIG as well as some other people who are interested in working on it.
By packaging, do you mean like Yum and Dead packages, or?
Yep. Yum and Dead packages, as well as the other assorted things that we've talked about fixing.
Yeah, I just didn't know what you meant, like Kubernetes, some manifest concept.
There's a part of that that's overlaps into this, and we've addressed part of that. We did the multi-arch manifest work in 2018, which is something I should actually write down on the list. And that was in part a lot of a valiant effort from DIMS, along with a bunch of other folks.
Few things what we discussed with Lucas in China about publishing tarballs with images for like rest of the containers like pause and ours, what we are using.
Yep. Ideally, all of the artifacts can be published from the KK repo as part of a build target, which is just release. I think we've wildly overcomplicated what we currently have. And I know that, and we've also have conflating requirements that we've created for ourselves that I'd like to break down and solve this problem. In most other smaller packages that you do releases from, the idea of a release is simply a one-time, very minor change that you do to the repository. Like for most of our projects at Heptio, it's just an annotated tag. You annotate a tag, and all of the other machinations go from there. The actual machinations that currently exist for a lot of the releasing are wildly overcomplicated, in my opinion. And I think we need to have a coming to terms conversation with the SIG release, because SIG cluster lifecycle has borne a lot of burden over many releases with some of the issues that existed. So, are there other topics that folks think I should be discussing during the call or during the updates?
Probably that's quite a
Well,
lot. I can't think of anything now.
Right. Why don't you go through? Why don't folks, if they have comments, go through? Everyone should have comment access. Some people have write access. Lucas, I believe you have write access.
To what? Yeah.
Slide deck. And go through and add details. And then, I'll be sure to try and clarify things one last time before KubeCon, and hopefully we can have a fruitful discussion during the Birds of a Feather talk that we have at the Contributor Summit.
Yeah. There was a good question here in the chat if we're going to extract kubevenom from the main repo in 2019. Let's say we hope so. I don't know.
There's too many dependencies currently still at this point.
Yes.
And there are, at this point, it's been beneficial to rev them. I think over time, once we have a well-factored sort of componentized version of the world where we can actually tease the dependencies apart, then that might be more possible. Last I heard from a an actual breaking out the repository thing, it is essentially stalled. So like API machinery was going to be the pilot case for a lot of this stuff, and a lot of that work has stalled. I don't exactly know where the future is going to go with the idea of breaking out into multiple federated repos versus doing sort of the mirroring apparatus. So I think that's a broader question that lives well beyond the scope of the SIG.
In any case, I think we've said so far. So yes, one, we can't due to the dependencies. But once we resolve them, and we will definitely work on resolving them, that is like one of the main goals of my component cap. So that is a step in that right direction. But once we've tangled those things out, we can move, maybe as a like stopgap or whatever, move kubevenom to staging.
I think we need to handle this in stages, right?
Yeah, but like where what we said earlier is that we're going to do the same as kubectl, because kubectl is kind of even more core, or like even so we don't, because if kubectl is moving out, it's taking a really long while, but they kind of need to do it first, because then all the API machinery will be ready for us, rather than we having to go first with kubeadm and then all that falls on us, right?
Yeah, this is a much broader conversation. Yes. I think we can table that because it's going to require multiple releases to get all the machinations in place. I think the fundamental requirement is component configuration needs to be well versioned and managed.
Yes, so that's the reason we can't move at all, because it doesn't make sense as it is right now. Once the component cap is starting at least to get implemented, we can start even thinking about it a bit. But now, no.
So again, one last call out. If you have details, please add them to the slides. Everyone should have comment access. Some people have write access. Lucas, you had the next agenda items?
Yeah. So first off, the blog post is now merged. That is really cool. Let's see if Kubernetes has also been tweeting. I don't know. But that is
and the survey is already out, and we have 23 responses already for the survey.
That's great.
Yep. Oh, as a PSA too, for folks who aren't aware, we created a survey for kubeadm as part of the GA release to try and get more feedback on what are the most high value areas, and also just get general usage information that folks would like us to focus on. And we'll try to, once we have detailed roll-up information from that survey, we'll report back out to the broader SIG on here are the common things we got back from the survey.
Yes. Okay. So I'll add that to the meeting notes. Survey included. We'll get back later. I think for now it's only the SIG leads that can see the or approvers more that can see the results, right? Yes. Okay. After that, we're gonna start something like working group component. We haven't decided on a name yet, so I'll put that in quotes. But the basic idea is we have a lot of code that should be generic, that isn't, and that basically means that we're duplicating and doing things differently in every Kubernetes core component, which is bad, because then that also means a lot of our components are lacking features that they should have. So with this, we're first going to target code, like pure code refactor with the cap linked, but then also start to change the behavior of the components to be consistent. So to have the same set of endpoints for those components who run HTTPS, use Cobra, maybe not use Cobra, use logging in a standardized way. Every component should support component config. The component config type should be in a good place that allows for vendoring, etc., etc., etc. So the first, the cap that I have here is a draft of, so that I'm gonna still resolve the comments there, but it's like as is approved by SIG architecture, I presented it in the last meeting on the last Thursday. And after I've updated and we've finalized the code refactoring or code moving spec or KEP, we're going to implement that in the workgroup component or workgroup, whatever, that myself and Mike Torfen and Stefan Szymanski are gonna lead. I don't know if does that. Is there any questions about that or like?
I had an idea for you on names. I think it's great. I had an idea for you on names, which is like controller or lib controller rather than component, which is, I mean, controller is still pretty broad, but I feel like everything is a controller. And I'm starting to realize that like even COPS is a controller and Kubernetes is a controller, like even though they have slightly weird sources, they're not necessarily API.
Yeah, we haven't talked at all. I think
I'm definitely not gonna. This could be a funsies for bike shedding naming during the BOF.
Yes.
Yeah.
WG bike shed.
Yeah, absolutely. Already on the only thing that we got full approval from SIG architecture, other than some bike shedding on that it can't be called k.io component because it's a library. So we have to like lib component or component lib or whatever. And we'll just see with that. But the idea in itself. Yes. So that's one thing. Do we have any sub-project updates?
That was all about the earlier part of doing the what's next. One of the things I wanted to discuss possibly during the BOF is doing a sort of, like we mentioned, a global 2019 sort of planning type of thing that would cut across everybody, right? Like bundles of something that would cut across everybody. Sort of general state of kubeadm integration and how to simplify things like libraries for phases, right? That's a way to better integrate things. Well-defined libraries for phases. We kind of did this on a lot of Heptio projects where like commands always use libraries. Those libraries are always generally consumable by other things. There's a well-structured layered model so that way if folks want to do custom Golang integrations, it's really clean.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly this kind of doc.
Maybe we can, if folks have details or thoughts, they can add that to the doc. Or we could, we have enough time, we could bike shed on some of the broader level topics right now, if we want to.
I think that could make sense. I'll share my screen.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Do you see C+ lifecycle roadmap?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'll just fix this up later, but all content here is what we did what we just had a brain dump and wrote down for 2018, and we've already implemented a couple of these, which I'll remove later. But you said with regards to kubeadm, Go code better structure the Go code to allow for reuse. Runtime reconfigure. AJR kubeadm join control plane.
I want to spread the gospel of kind everywhere.
Yes, kind cluster API. Well, I'll just cubes pray. So people can, if you come along and edit, I think you should have, Yes, everyone with the link can edit. What other? We could have like a meta build. Profile. First beta.
I can say for COPS, like I think the big goal is sort of to continue what we've been doing in 2018, I think, which is trying to make it less of an island and, you know, using things like SVADM and cluster bundles and hopefully kubeADM and just, you know, less of a monolithic all or nothing and more of a opinionated bundle of open source pieces that are shared.
Yeah, right. So now that you've moved to Google, do you have time for COPS anymore, Justin? Or
absolutely, I have to do a little bit more to make GCE more awesome, or COPS with GCE more awesome, I should say. But yes.
Cool. Yeah. So, what should we say about kind? Tim, feel free to.
The biggest thing is just to spread it as far and wide, and to update the PR blocking jobs to use kind, and to convert every other provider-specific jobs to periodics, because that is a global source of frustration that has existed for many, many years now.
And I don't know if you know this, but I would actually be in favor of that.
Yeah. I think it does make sense.
The biggest flakes have nothing to do with even COPS, right? The biggest flakes.
I mean, just sheer volume as well. Like, you know, like we have the running that many clusters that fast against any infrastructure is going to like throw up all sorts of weird flakes. So that the fewer we can, and I think most of them are just like quota issues more than anything else, or like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's part of my I'm mad as hell slide. I can't take anymore.
It means that, Justin, it means that we cannot have them, the COPS AWS jobs as post submits because it's going to be the same volume. So we have to move them to periodics pretty much.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. I don't see a huge problem with that, to be honest.
Yeah, because the post submits essentially are going to be the same volume. It's just they are not going to be PR blocking. That's the difference.
One thing.
Your volume went out, Justin. I don't know why.
Maybe Justin dropped.
I don't know.
His screen looks frozen.
Yeah, I'm basically seeing like vSphere end-to-end test updates being made to be pre-submits and stuff like that. I mean, we should move everything out. And that's probably like a bigger discussion because to my understanding, like everybody wants this, but there are still some cloud providers that are not comfortable with some cloud providers that are not comfortable with having zero pre-submits for their infrastructure. So there's a bit of a political discussion there.
We can squash that discussion. I'll happily throw it down there because the overall cost is far greater than the benefit, and you still get reasonable signal on periodics.
And I don't know when we cut out, but I feel like the ability to run particular tests on a particular PR on demand would really address that, right? So if you have a concern about performance, you run the perf test. If you're concerned about GC, you run the GC test, etc.
Right. So they wouldn't be. You can ask for the like, okay, please. I know that I'm changing stuff that can be, I don't know, dangerous in GKE. So now I request that it runs for GKE instead of it always runs for GKE or whatever. Like, I think there are many of the Google jobs right now that there are exceptions. So like some scalability ones and more specific, like that are testing real stuff, but isn't redundant. So we don't have to remove everything, but like most things can be moved to periodics, and instead we'll rely on kind. Yes, also AJ control plane testing first implementation. Draft gap.
Justin, in case you're not like hot on the Twitter train, immediately Microsoft and Docker announced a new application bundle as of today.
Thank you. I try to stay off the Twitter, so thank you for the heads up.
Yeah.
Yes. More. What else should we add here that we don't have that are higher level with regards to we still have the getting started from scratch, right? Is there anyone that feels like we should totally rebase this one?
I don't want to own that.
No, I know, but nobody knows him now. So like, is it better to like, in order to run an etcd instance, you have to do this? And so is it better to remove? That is what I'm asking. Do we want to own this? Because it's really, it does fall under our umbrella. Or so should we rebase or delete? And if we delete, where is the replacement?
Well, the replacement is creating a cluster with Kubedium.
But it doesn't explain all the steps if you want to do it yourself.
We should. We can crib a lot of the text and host it in the Kubedium repo as like here was the starting point, and we can even reference like Kubernetes the hard way as well, and say like here are all the details if you want to do it yourself, and host it from the Kubedium repository as just a standard markdown. Seems like a reasonable thing, but I don't think we should be publishing it to the wild, because the problem that I've seen in a lot of the communications that we get on Slack is basically I've blown off my own foot with a shotgun. Please help me fix it. And and the short answer is don't use a shotgun, as a cooking utensil or something like that. It's almost borderline dangerous at this point, having this documentation out in the wild, because people can and do use it on their own, and there are bad consequences that occur not only for the project, but also for developers and users who are working on the project.
I think we should just remove it and link to the Kelsey tutorial. Basically, it's already out there. Everybody knows about it. it's just extra burden for us to maintain and debug, and yeah.
Nobody's supporting us. So like what is here right now will not give you a conformant cluster. That is also an argument we can use in order to like justify the removal. I don't know.
I have to say that I didn't know that this page exists.
It has existed since like really at the beginning, like, and it's pretty visible as well because it's like kubeadim is here, and here we have it. There we have something. I don't know. This is also like I don't know what to do with these kind of things.
I mean, one of the intentions of the conformance thing was to be able to say, if you're not conformant, you cannot be in here, right?
Yeah, but I guess this is conformant because it's like it's a shim on top of cube spray, which is a shim on top of kubeadim. Yes, okay. I also think so.
Okay, then we should wrap it in.
Yeah, but like just the also these things are so a meta thing is really like this doesn't seem to make sense at all, or I don't know if it makes sense to me to have like this is like marketing stuff. I don't know in the case of DCOS if they submit conformance or not, but
that stuff really should not be even in there.
Yeah, I guess they do. This hasn't seemed
like
yeah.
Provider specific things that are not agnostic or general purpose across providers. I think we could possibly link to them, and I think that's okay. Like, you know, if there's federated cloud provider integrations, I think linking to them makes a ton of sense, but I don't think they should be hosted or maintained in the main KK repo.
Right. So I'm thinking like we've discussed this earlier, but okay. So we have release notes there. We are building. This is not good. This doesn't explain enough and doesn't have the right, I think, links either to the community and contribution stuff. Anyway, we have kubeadim here. So we have COPS and cube spray are here. I think what we could do is like move, if they don't like kubeadim have a directory of stuff, they at least could be top level here as Minikube. PKI certificates seems pretty okay. I don't know if there was one of the Heptio folks that wrote this or.
Yes, that Liz wrote all that stuff.
Yes, I think so. So like this is perfect stuff. This seems outdated.
No, it's up to date. She did a rev of this recently. Well, validated node setup. I don't know about. She did the PKI certificates and requirements, not the validated node setup.
Yeah. So like the PKI was good, but I moved on to this. This seems out of place a bit. Then we have this. Then we have running in law multiple zones, which references this old deprecated thing. We maybe even have removed this by this time. And uses get case.io that I've haven't used in years. I'm just thinking, like, as a meta thing, we should really go through at least. I mean, I guess we kind of own everything that's on the setup.
I'm going to say that it's probably SIG-docs that is owning everything, because we proposed for them to reorganize the setup folder, and we didn't receive any response, because the evolution of the setup folder is super chaotic right now. For instance, kubeadm is under the independent folder for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, the whole setup folder needs a restructure, and I'm not sure why sequence lifecycle should be the owner.
So I think there's a distinction between who owns the directory structure and merging things and who owns the actual content. And what I mean is that we're the owners of the actual content in everything under setup. So we might have to, or we have to collaborate with them, of course, to merge stuff, to reorder metadata and folder structure, yes, but it's still we that are owning the content of this thing. So that's what I mean, that like if we see that, okay, this references a lot of old unmaintained stuff that haven't been getting commits for years, then we go ahead and remove this doc. We promote the kube spray and COPS things up here top level. We go ahead, remove the custom cluster from scratch because nobody's going to have time to maintain it. And right now it's more harmful than good. We revisit together with SIG scalability, building large clusters section. I don't know if there are like things here we should check, etc. So that's what I'm thinking. Like we see that here we have AWS EC2 something that references kube up, and some other stuff. Like, are these good things? Like COPS obviously, but it's again already in another place. Should we things like this? Like, is this actually because we deprecated years ago? We deprecated the cluster directory. Sure, it might still get you a production ready cluster using gkey, but gkey is the cluster directory plus other things, right? So, do we recommend to anyone to actually use get-case.io, for example?
The one problem with the docs is that we don't get a ping. Nobody pings us when something gets merged into the setup folder.
We can for sure fix that, I think, using owners. Because we don't have owners files in this directory that say assign one SIG lifecycle member each time. But yes, I agree, it's a problem.
Yeah, I guess if we are owning this whole docs structure, it might take a while before before we can complete the reorganization. And also,
yes,
I have a problem that I don't understand, like how the end structure should look like.
We need to coordinate this effort with both docs as well as like the legacy stakeholders for some of this stuff.
So SIG docs are super busy. They like review hundreds of PRs every day. And my understanding is that they are going to push this forward in time as much as possible. So basically, they are not looking forward to this. That's my point.
I was told that if SIG docs creates a heat map with a checklist, that they can federate this work out, because apparently there's pressure pressure being put to bear on contributors to the CNCF that they need to actually execute and throw down versus doing the pay-to-play thing. So that might be a good thing to curate ahead of time, is just having a meta issue with all of the details that we've discussed here broken down into checklist form, so that way third party can do the work.
And if we can get an approval from sequence lifecycle in the setup folder, that's going to make things very easy for us.
Yeah, but that's been notoriously difficult. The docs folks don't like doing that.
Yes, it's a political problem.
But I think start with Google document outlining what we want there and what we don't want in setup. We've already spec'd different criteria for being referenced, e.g. Participating in the case.
Another problem is that if we move stuff around and like rename like documents and move documents into new folders, like the appropriate folders they belong to. Like for instance, kubeadm should not be independent. If we do that, we are going to break like backwards compatibility.
No, they have redirect support.
So the old versions of like Kubernetes 1.10 are we going to break the links for them as well? I mean the docs are version, but
I don't think we're gonna, because they have. I've seen if they've not removed it by this, but I don't understand why they would. Earlier there was a possibility to when you move the doc, you could still keep the redirect.
Okay.
So I think that should be okay. Also, revisit our sub-projects and things in the incubator. So the incubator is deprecated as of long ago. But still there's a lot of stuff here. So things I've been thinking about, like, what is the state of Bootkube? Is it something that actually people use and that is actually usable? Does it participate in the CNCF program? Whatever, what is the state of Kube AWS? Is this actually going to rebase? And we should think of this as, like, from our perspective going forward with the cluster API and with all that. So if AWS themselves invest in the cluster API, the community around AWS invest in the cluster API, etc., etc. Is this just gonna be a burden, or are there people contributing to this? I have no idea.
So there needs to be broader SIG discussion, as well as this needs to be brought up with steering about deprecation policy. Yes. we do have a process that's lightly outlined with that basically how to move this into an attic, and people can always bring it back from the attic, right? Like there's nothing that prevents folks from like dusting stuff off, and what is old is now new again. But that way it's clear to the community that these things are not actively being maintained. I prefer not to call it graveyard. We've actually had this conversation to call it attic versus graveyard because we're retired. So that way, like, folks can, come back out of retirement if they should need to.
Yeah, right. So here we have, it was called retired. So, for example, does it make sense to move something there? I don't know, but like, revisit the state of our own sub-project, see, and also we could have like that the sub-projects should check in with this in this call like once a month or something. It's also a doable thing.
There is actually a formal declaration that says if you don't check in periodically or you don't have meetings, for a broader engagement, that after an X week period, that says we can start to go through the process of delisting.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I could also put this on the list. Just
This hits beyond that issue hits way beyond just the control plane components, though, because
yes, it does, but it's something that we're actively like.
well, we're active on some stuff. We're not active on other
Yeah.
things.
Not all of them, but like supported version.
There's a broader effort that kind of hits all this stuff, that we need to start to do sort of distro level management across Kubernetes for a given release cycle. That gets very meta.
Yes, right. But I'm of the opinion that in Kubernetes core we shouldn't build something that is distro level. Right.
It's the core, it's the kernel, right? Like you'd have a
Right.
version of the kernel, and then you'd start to, like, your distro basically bundles, like, your basic tool chain would be things like etcd and required add-ons like core DNS. Then outside of that, it's basically the federated list of packages that folks want to curate, and gets in the weird distribution space. So
Yeah, so right, we and that's basically what we're trying to do with kubeNM. So like the minimum thing you can do can still be kind of considered kernel, right?
yes,
But
it's MVP. It's kernel plus basic tools to get it running.
yes. So like the relay, but it still kind of belongs to the kernel versus something like COPS or KubeSpray or whatever. That is definitely a distribution, right?
This is a time check. We are T-minus
Yes.
1 minute.
But yeah, that's meta. I also had that last year. It's distros vs kernel things. Yeah, let's fill in stuff here, everyone, and then we'll see what we'll come up with also during the Contrib Summit.
You can delete the remaining items from previous years at the bottom.
I'll do that later and curate some of the stuff that we actually haven't done, but we've done many of them. So yes, much of this will be deleted.
Right, we're at time. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks.